everyone. It is 6:03, and I'm going to call to order the September meeting of the Ann Arbor Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. And I'm going to ask first that the roll be called.
Councilmember Song.
Here.
Commissioner Othman.
Here.
Commissioner Billups.
Present.
Chair Carter.
Here.
Commissioner Milgram.
Here.
Commissioner Pipkins. Councilmember Harrison.
Here.
Commissioner Green. Commissioner Hayes.
Here.
Commissioner Eliakim. Commissioner Francis.
Here.
Commissioner Liu.
Here.
And Commissioner Pipkin just is here now. Okay. So we have a quorum. I would like to see if I can get someone to move approval of today's agenda. Moved by Commissioner Othman. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good, thank you. Is there any discussion about the agenda? Any additions or corrections for the agenda? If not, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as printed, please signify by stating aye. Here,
Aye.
yes. Whatever.
Aye. How about aye?
Thank you. Next is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was in June. May I have a motion to approve, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes in June.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any changes, corrections, additions to the minutes from June? If not, all in favor of approval of the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Thank you. Now is the time for public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to say anything today to the commission? Seeing no one, we'll move on. Report from the chair. I want to say it's good to be here. I was not here at the June meeting, and I thank Commissioner Othman for standing in for me and for agreeing to be vice chair. So, a couple of things. First of all, I want to welcome our new commissioner, our student commissioner, Commissioner Lou.
Yeah.
Got it right? Okay. Good to have you here. Is there anything you want to say at all? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm Erica. I just finished school and I am now working, but I live in Ann Arbor, so I live close by and I look forward to working with all of you guys.
Good. Thank you. And the second thing I want to say is, again, congratulations to Commissioner Billups, who was honored as the monuments for the city of Ann Arbor as part of the bicentennial, and we're just as happy for him. Do you want to say anything at all about your great honor?
No, it was a great event. It was a way to honor some other great people in Ann Arbor, and it was my honor to stand there and to be a part of that. It's a part of all the great people that I work with at Peace Neighborhood Center for over 40 years, that and being able to be there to stand in the place of all those people. So,
Well, you
yeah.
contributed so much to the city.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, so a number of us did attend the Chief's in July. Chief Anderson had a community meeting about his vision moving forward, and we appreciated being there. Chief, do you have any words at all that you'd like to say to us this evening? We're always glad to have you and the other members of the department come with you to our meetings.
Thank you, Commissioner, and all of you are here, Chair. I am really pleased to see our staff here, and they're very interested in learning more about what we're doing. I really appreciate you attending our event, our community event, to talk about our vision. We hope that our shared vision is one that allows for us to connect to the community while also embracing community policing. We believe that it's going to take some time, but we're already steadfast and moving in a way in which we're putting police officers in beats. We're working and connecting with the community, and there's so much we can do together. We love the opportunity to work with ICPOC, and we want to help grow from where we are and help develop us in terms of where we're going to be in the community. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Chief. And we look forward, I don't know if Ms. Kennedy Cummings has been in touch with your office, but we would like, whenever you have a community event, if you would invite ICPOC and we'll try and show up.
Yeah, we did get that. We're looking at some events. In fact, we have a couple of them that we're looking at now. We're going to be talking about what's called our Vision Zero, which is a city event. We'll have a number of them, so we want to make sure that you're invited to that. Also, we are updating our policy and our practice with respect to de-escalation. We have a new practice that we're taking. We would like to have you all take a look at what we're doing with de-escalation. There's a new policy, there's a new practice, there's an innovative model that we're using where we work with what we call a Milo, but it's a virtual reality system. We want you to also come and be part of it because you will see what we're doing with respect to how we can approach situations and our police officers find ways to not use force. So we would like to make sure we're inviting you so that you can see it and participate as well.
Well, thank you very much. See, we have I know a lot of our commissioners would want to come to those events as often as we possibly can, so we thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We do have a meeting scheduled, I think, next week with Chief Anderson to talk about issues regarding the reporting of traffic stop information. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to look at the dashboard. I didn't know if Dr. Karpiak was going to be here this evening. We just want to make sure that we know the information is being gathered. We want to make sure it's in a way that we can use it because we certainly want to follow up on the traffic study that Dr. Karpiak did a couple of years ago.
Just one thing about the dashboard is if you look at the different items, the citations, the traffic stop, and the arrest and all that stuff, and you will find that each one is categorized, and then you have a long bar of unknown or not described or not part of that. And that constitutes a bit of the cases that are part of this dashboard. What this unknown thing or uncategorized?
We hope to provide that information to you when we meet so you can kind of understand what it looks like. It is challenging because, here in our state, there are so many things that you can stop a person for. I mean, there's hundreds of them. And so, and the reason why the officers are stopping them, it's just so much data. We need to be able to try to find a way in which we can look at the data. We have the information, so we know, but we cannot get everything that we need. We're going to explain it to you, but we're going to explain it to you with a purpose, because you'll know, we'll run you through a presentation, you'll see it, but the purpose is we're fixing that information. But it is difficult because the officers have a plethora of reasons why they can stop individuals, and to be honest with you, our current records management system, for lack of a better term, called CLEMIS, is unable to track everything we need. So we brought on a sergeant that's working directly with data, and we're also looking to move forward with respect to doing what's called a request for information so that we can start finding out how we can track data. And the last thing that I think what's important about it is when we put the request for information, which means we're going to go out to vendors and we're going to ask the vendors to help us determine what is the best way we can collect data, we're going to invite you because we'll ask you to look at what that scope looks like so we can get an agreement on what it looks like so you know in the beginning, here's what it can do and here's what it can't do. So that's kind of what our plan is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from any commissioners regarding the dashboard specifically? And I would urge everybody to take a look at it, for the next meeting, and so we'll see if we have any further comments. Several of us are planning to attend the NACO conference next month, and with the resignation of one of our commissioners, there is a spot. If anyone has the time and would like to go, the conference is October 13th through the 17th in Tucson, Arizona. And just let Ms. Cummings know because we've paid for the spot. Okay? Speaking of NACO, you have in your packet, I think, a copy of the NACO Code of Ethics. Everybody see that? Yes. I know you've seen it before, but I'm giving it to you again. On the last page there, you can see a list of the oversight agencies who have adopted this Code of Ethics. And I think it would be a nice idea for Ann Arbor to also adopt the Code of Ethics. Basically, the preamble states civilian oversight practitioners have a unique role as public servants overseeing law enforcement agencies. The community, government, and law enforcement have entrusted them to conduct their work in a professional, fair, and impartial manner. They earn this trust through a firm commitment to the public good, the mission of their agency, and to the ethical and professional standards described herein. So I would like everybody, please, to read over this, and at the October meeting, I would like to ask for approval so that we can actually have adopted this code of ethics for ICPOC. Okay? All right. You also have a report. Sometimes I go on and on, but I was able to go to Noble Conference, which is National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, something like that. And I must say, I was around a lot of policemen. And there was, I had to get comfortable with it because there was a lot of policemen. But it was an excellent conference. There were several sessions dealing with oversight. And if you get a chance, take a look at my report. I know it's long, but a couple of things that I wanted to point out as you read through this. The first workshop that I went to was entitled "Hate in America Leading to Violent Crimes." And this is a resource I think that we can maybe won't have to get to, but through the U.S. Attorney's Office in each district, they have someone who can come out and give a talk and talk to the community about hate crimes and how to combat them. And the object is to have people report. This is just a personal thing. I think people are so angry. And sometimes we don't even know why. But we're so angry, and sometimes we are rude to one another. You see it as we drive. People are not willing to let you in. Everything is a push and a pushback. And I thought this was it's something for us to have in our arsenal if that comes up. There was another workshop where, interestingly enough, the Oversight Commission was found to be too close to the police department. And that was a reminder that we have to keep our distance. We have to make sure that I think collaboration does not equal being co-opted. And that was what I got from that. And I think it makes sense to pay attention to that. They talked about one oversight agency that was actually under a federal consent decree because they were working too closely with the police department and not doing what they were supposed to be doing. A couple of facts: in the early 1920s, there were only a couple of oversight agencies. Now there are about 250 across the country. And also, I cited one area where oversight actually did its job so well. They were getting a lot of complaints about chokeholds. And they couldn't figure out, what's going on with all these chokeholds. And so they looked at the badge numbers of the officers who were doing these chokeholds. They found out they were like consecutive, which said they were in the same training class. And this is what the Oversight Commission did. And so they went back and looked and saw that when these officers were trained, chokeholds were okay. And so the officers went through new training, and that resolved the problem. There was let me see if I can find, like $2 billion has been paid out since 2010 for police misconduct claims. So when oversight commissions can take complaints and try and work them out, it saves everybody. Lastly, I went to one that was called trauma-informed policing, and that's a big thing now, trauma-informed, and where we have to understand the people that come to us to complain, the people that we're supposed to help out with the commission. And the whole idea with that is that rather than saying, what's wrong with you, to ask, what happened to you? What is it that's going on in your life that makes you act the way you do? And so it was, I think definitely it was worth going to, and hopefully you'll get something out of the report. I did have a PS. While we were the conference was in New Orleans, and while we were there, I went to an exhibit called Captive State, Louisiana in the Making of Mass Incarceration. And if you look, I made some copies of some of the handouts that I got, but there's one called Incarceration Rates, and this shows, it was just almost incredible, the incarceration rates between the state of Louisiana and other countries and the whole United States. And part of the issue was, which I didn't know, but I think is interesting, part of the issue was that Louisiana was a state that in capital crimes did not require a unanimous verdict to convict. And so, and they had the highest rate of exonerations. So it wasn't until 2020 that they required a unanimous verdict. Yeah, I know, it's amazing. So anyway, hopefully that is of some interest. I'm going to ask the vice chair, and if you want to report at all anything about our complaints. I'm not going to talk about our complaints, but you're being the chair of the information managers, I don't know if you want to give your report now about anything you want to say about complaints, or wait until your actual committee report.
It does not really matter. It's going to be the same whether now or a bit later.
Okay.
Just for the sake of what we have right now is the updates. We have about 21 complaints that are in the portal with some kind of verdict from the Lieutenant Turley, but we don't have the actual materials that we can go and review. But at least a summary of those 21 cases so far, we had that for 2024. And as time progresses, probably we might have something similar to previous years, between 20 to 30 complaints that we're going to be receiving. The only difference in this round is there were few were about the police standing by at the protest on campus, whether or not the police was involved or not. There were a few of those. And also there were a few came from one individual about his encounter, his vision with his encounter with the police. So there were, I would say, maybe half of those ones, under half, were coming from two sources, not from just different individuals or different citizens who were complaining. So this is part of that. Hopefully, in not a long time, we'll have those coming to us, so I can review those ones and assign them to the members of the subcommittee of the information managers. I think today it will be reconfirming the formations of the subcommittees, and we'll see. And why I would like to have that review before assigning is sometimes you can't go and say, well, 1 to 4 to 1 manager, because you could have one case or complaint where you have maybe 2 hours worth of video, and then the other 3 would be just maybe 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so. So we want to be equitable, not based on the number that is going to be assigned to the managers, but to the amount of time.
Excuse me,
here.
I just wanted to interrupt and say that the information managers report is included in the handouts. It's the last sheet.
Yes. It's just, I think we'll do is I'll follow up on that when my time comes. That's fine.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I've been getting, and I'd imagine we are all getting some emails since, I think they're all just been since September, a lot of emails, but I think it just amounts to 2 separate cases that I'm assuming should just be going to the information managers. It's not really germane for all of us, correct? I mean, I think everybody knows what I'm referring to. I don't want to refer to the specific cases.
Yeah, we are all getting that email because the person wishes to send it out.
Yeah.
And so that's entirely up to them, but it's something that...
But it is being handled by the information, or it's going to be.
Yes.
Within the purview, certainly, of the
Yes,
information manager.
this is what I got the email.
Yeah.
Actually, we got few of those ones from the same
Didn't
individual.
get the complaint through normal channels, you got it through the email process? Is that-
It's through the email, and I pass it to AAPD
Okay.
to reinvestigate that, because that was questioning the factual parts of the report,
Right.
and I felt that...
I tried to read through some of it.
Yeah,
It wasn't easy.
Yeah, but definitely it's something that probably would require one of our lawyers over here on the information managers to review that, because just to make sure that when we send the report or when we send the reply to the complainant, that it's sound.
Sure.
I could write it, but I would say I'm not an authority on the legal aspects of reviewing such type of a case.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Okay. And finally, with regard to complaints, we had a couple of complaints and just reports that came in, as Commissioner Hoffman stated, questioning whether and how the Ann Arbor Police Department was involved in the protests that were on campus. And we did contact the department, and they let us know that we were not involved in the arrests or dismantling the encampment or anything like that, but were there to sort of stand by if needed. And there was a question about whether taxpayer funds were being used for the police there, and the answer was just as if they do for football games. If Ann Arbor police are used by the university, we are reimbursed for that. So then we got a question from a reporter as to, well, supposedly the reporter had seen a police officer turn off their camera while they were there on campus. And so I asked Commissioner Milgram, and I think when we get to his report,
Sure.
will sort of fill us in on what should they have had on their cameras. If you're just on a standby and you're not participating in any, don't have any contact with the citizen or the student or whatever, what does our policy say? So we just wanted to take a look at the policy, and I've asked Commissioner Milgram to report on that, and so we'll move on and come back to that issue. Okay, next on our agenda is old business. Is there any old business? Okay. New business. I know under new business, we were going to introduce Commissioner Lewell, but she's already been introduced. And we, again, welcome you to the commission. Commissioner subcommittee formation. I know as of last year, everyone was on a subcommittee. So I want to make sure that everybody is where they want to be starting off our new year. If you'd like to be on a different committee, you can speak up or let me know later and I can shift around. But we have our training committee, policy committee,
And some of us who are committees of one would not mind.
I said I was going to get you somebody.
Additional people on their committee, right?
Hang in there.
Okay.
Hang in there. We're going to expand that committee.
I mean, it's nice to be the chair of a committee. But,
All right. And now we are on to reports from our committees, and first is the policy committee.
Okay, so I'm back.
You're back.
Yeah, so with regard to the situation as described with regard to the body-worn cameras, I think I wrote down the question I think is asked, which was under these circumstances where the officer is supposed to have their BWCs, body-worn cameras on, and if not, might a change to the policy be appropriate? And as I explained to some of the officers before the meeting, I hope I'm not making this more complicated than it needs to be. But if any correction is necessary, I'm glad you're here to correct. So, and in fact, I haven't come to any hard conclusions, unfortunately. So, I mean, there's quite a few policy provisions, most of which are sort of irrelevant to this. I mean, there's a lot with regard to storage and use and et cetera. But there is a general use of BWC's policy that simply says police employees shall activate BWCs to full record mode on all calls for service and during all enforcement-related encounters and activities. Soon after that, within the same, there's another subsection, and this is where, to me, it gets a little confusing. It then says, it's under the subheading of escalating encounters or activity, if a police employee begins an encounter or activity that does not require the BWC to be activated, but the encounter or activity escalates to involve potential enforcement, the employee should activate the BWC. The employee may inform any persons present that it's on or not, so, or not required to do that. So to me, it raises the obvious question. I mean, are BWCs required to be activated to full record mode on all calls for service, quote unquote, and during all enforcement-related encounters or not? And if not, what are the exceptions? And beyond that, do the terms call for service And all enforcement-related encounters include standby, which in my further review, I don't see the term standby used anywhere. I've seen police presence, and maybe that's an interchangeable term, but I don't, in the policies that I've seen, and there may be others I haven't been able to find, there's no term used such as standby, so I'm not sure what being on standby means. So far with regard to that, I mean, my recommendations would be, if there are exceptions to the mandate to activate the BWCs to full record mode at all times, more or less, those should be clearly specified, and then maybe even specify what the calls for service and what enforcement-related encounters and activities, how do you define that as well? And I guess specifically for our purposes, standby included within those. So beyond that, I guess I also thought about the broader issues here with regard to how the department interacts with U of M and other agencies, and I became aware that there's quite a few policies on that. One is called mutual aid, which is 38 pages, and other contractual agreements for law enforcement services, and then liaison with agencies involved in traffic safety. And I guess I was just informed today that you had seen, Chair Carter, an agreement which I have not been privy to. So there was an agreement, I'm assuming now, under which you performed services during the campus unrest, if you will. Maybe not. I mean, I know you had. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, the agreement talks about, I forget the name of the agreement, but it talks about basically that if Ann Arbor is called upon, it's like a mutual aid kind of agreement. And so. Yeah,
I mean, so within the provisions of the policy, my question became, what was the nature of the agreement between U of M Public Safety and the department with regard to the campus protest? Because according to the policies, if there was a formal and specific request, the policies require that there be a written agreement which would include payment for specific services. And so what was the specific nature of the services to be rendered? And there's a sample agreement within the policy provisions that provides, it's the closest thing I could come to within the provisions I saw of an agreement to provide standby services, and that says the services provided for herein are simply AAPD police presence, not any special or enhanced duties or services. Assigned officers will be under normal AAPD command and will act in accordance with AAPD policies, procedures, and protocols, which, as we already know, that would mean having, normal policies and protocols would mean having BWCs on in full record mode at all times.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I come out. Unless there are exceptions to that, then, I mean, I don't know how this reporter knew, or, because the other thing I'll mention just offhandedly is, I was going to say, if an officer or officers turn their BWCs off, perhaps they weren't supposed to do that. I'm questioning that based on just the policies, unless there's an exception to when you can turn them off, which I haven't found, and that it's possible there are just provisions that I haven't found. But I did, because I had looked at this last Friday and I went to the game, and I approached an officer stationed outside Michigan Stadium prior to the football game, and her name was Ashley, and we had a nice conversation. I introduced myself and told her I was commissioner and said I was looking into the BWC policy. Now, she had told me that, which that her BWC was activated. I said, do you have it on? Are you recording this conversation? She said, well, it's activated, but she's not currently recording. And so she said if she were to determine at any time that she needed or wanted to start recording, she could simply push a button, and she kind of showed it to me, and it's easily accessible to her on her midsection, but very discreetly, covered up really. I mean, to the average bystander, I wouldn't know, I certainly wouldn't know if or when somebody was turning their BWC on or off. So I'm not sure, I mean, I'm maybe on that basis a little skeptical about the reporter, how he or she even, knew that was the case. So, and she also informed me, which was interesting, that if she were to press this button, the recording would actually commence 30 seconds prior to when she pressed it, which was pretty cool. So now I guess I have a question about, are you just required to have it fully activated and not on activated but not on full record mode? Is that imprecisely worded in the policies? Do we need to? So anyway, I have a lot of questions, but that's my analysis of it.
So we're not looking for answers.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you all on the spot
Right.
when you come to see us and we're asking you questions. That's not. But
we can address those.
if you'd like to, that would be great, because I guess the issue, and what the reporter said was, and I said, this isn't, she had several questions, and I said, this isn't the way that we handle complaints. I, told her if she wanted to handle a complaint. There was no one named, but what she said was, someone saw the officer turn off their camera, which could indicate they felt it wasn't needed, or that something was happening that they didn't want recorded. I don't know. And so maybe the policy is unclear. Chief, if you or someone wants to say something and help us on this?
I can. So while I was sitting there, we did receive some information from the media, so I actually had our communications manager. It was kind of the same concern, and I just sent them a message to send it directly to you, so you have the response to all of them.
Okay.
So you're gonna get our response.
Okay.
So I think what you've described could potentially be maybe a hole in our policy, maybe. Because what you described is, you talked about when an officer is no longer needed to have their body-worn camera footage, which is true, and for us to delineate some of the reasons why, which I think we have, but we can provide more information on that.
As I said, it's possible that those are already prescribed in the, I didn't find them.
Right. We'll look into that further. I'm sure we have a team here, but I just want you to just think about a few things. There are reasons why the officers will not have their body, not have it on all the time. For example, medical reasons. If you're talking to someone about a medical condition and it's running all the time, they're going to turn it off, because that's a problem for us to capture medical information. Officers that enter the restrooms, or people go into the restrooms, there's privacy issues, we're going to turn it off sometimes for those things. There are a number of reasons why an officer may turn them off. However, that can lead you to believe like they're just turning it on and off when they don't need to. So we need to make sure it's pretty much, for privacy issues, we need to delineate those reasons. One other reason is, sometimes an officer may talk to a person that wants to give them information about a crime. And if it's on body-worn camera and someone gets it, that's not good for the person that's telling us information. So we're going to turn it off, because we don't want to give up that information because people won't tell us. So there are a lot of reasons why. The buffer is what we talk about. It's that 30-second portion where it's constantly running. That's really a good thing for the police officers to have until they press the actual button. Because I want you to think hypothetically, if a police officer engages in a pretty dangerous situation, they only have two hands. So they may have to use their hands to address it. So what they'll do is they'll press the button to allow for it to occur, but what they see may have happened before they actually press the button. So it'll buffer back 30 seconds so you can see what happened before the officer actually activated it, and that's what you want. Instead of something already happening, and then they press the record, and then you can't tell what happened before. So it buffers back for that reason, and it's running all the time because we want you to be able to see what we're doing before we actually engage. So there are some reasons.
I would just say, I mean, there is a section that I saw that talks about times to turn it off, and you mentioned the restroom break. I mean, that comes to mind, but I didn't see in my review any germane exceptions to this situation.
Right. And I think that's the part that we'll review, because I know in some policies, as well as we need to look at ours, we can kind of delineate when that should happen and when it shouldn't, when it should. And that helps people see the true transparency of what we're doing.
If I might suggest, I mean, I used to be a lawyer, and I'm not anymore, so I probably shouldn't be giving any kind of legal advice. But, I mean, it could just be that first general provision saying must, shall at all times. It might not be an accurate description of what is really being required, and that doesn't need to be required.
Yeah, I think that's really good information, and it's a good catch. Generally speaking, I like to look at must and shall, because there are things that we must and shall do, but when we get into an area where we're unsure, we want to modify that language. But I think we want to make sure that we're doing what's best for the community and the police officers, but more importantly, there are times when we shall and we must do things. So that's important, and the onus is on us to be able to respond to when we shall and must.
I have a question. So once you guys go back and decipher this policy that's currently in place and decide how to word it or how to move forward, then at that point, you have a discussion on whether it needs to be changed, updated, and things like that, and then we'll be notified as far as the update. So how does that work? Because you really didn't answer the question as far as when you're in place somewhere, if it's supposed to be on or not. So that is still kind of like a gray area.
Yeah, I think to answer the first part, we will make sure that the way that we kind of operate, I know that you all work as a cohesive chair group, we will communicate it back to the chair, and then she can communicate it back to you. I am going to have us review the policy, and then we'll look at it and see if there's anything that we need to change. If we don't change anything in the policy, we're going to send it back to you. If we do change things in the policy, we're going to send it back to you. So either way, you're going to get the policy. I think the second part you asked about, it's a constant buffering, being able to record, I thought.
Well, actually, because at the first part it said that when you're in a situation, it should be on. So the situation at hand was when you guys were there as a help aid to the University of Michigan police officers. So in that type of setting, should it have been on, but that's where it doesn't really help us in the policy part. Like, we're there to help, but at what point do we turn it on? Because something could pop off at any moment, and we may not have time to, I don't know, so.
Yeah, I want to read it a little bit more, because when the Commissioner Milgram was reading it, I heard something that I hadn't heard in the policy. It was the word "and," so it was what you provided before, and then the word "and," and so the "and" talked about enforcement. So we're going to turn it on when we have enforcement. But if we don't have enforcement, and a police officer is really just talking to you, there's no reason for them to be recording what they're saying. And sometimes when it came to the protests, there were people that would come up and in and out of that area, and we would just talk to them. We weren't really doing enforcement, and there wasn't any reason for us to record it. But if we took enforcement, which we did not, then we would start recording. So I think those are the combination of what we want. We kind of, for lack of a better term, we want people to feel comfortable talking to us, for the obvious reasons, nobody wants to be recorded all the time. And so we don't want that. But if we actually get into an enforcement mode, we want the police officers to actually start recording.
So, yeah, so, but on that issue, I mean, with regard to the policies, and again, perhaps I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be, and perhaps it's defined somewhere. But when it says, you know, on all calls for service, and I don't think calls for service is defined anywhere, and on all enforcement-related encounters and activities. Now, you're saying perhaps that this was not an enforcement-related activity, but I wouldn't know that just, you know, reading it. Maybe there should be a list of, you know, or just a definition of it, as well as, what is a call for service? I mean, it sounds like this was a call for service in the natural, you know, in the normal lexicon. It seems like a call for service, but if it isn't,
that we understand that we understand that, but perhaps maybe you wouldn't. So that causes us to kind of look at it. That's why it's good for other people to see things. You know, a call for service is generally when someone calls us and we have service. But the police officers can initiate a call as well when they have contact with someone. And when they initiate it, they're doing it for a reason. So they want to activate their body-worn camera to document there's actually some service that we're providing. But if they're just talking to you, there's not any service. So we probably need to kind of work on that language so you can kind of understand it a little bit better, because like I understand it, but I read it all the time. You don't understand it, which means that we need to modify that language so that you can understand it.
Are there any other questions or comments from Commissioner?
I think, you know, from what you're saying and just what I've just read here today for the first time, I think there might be a language issue with, from what I understand, there's activated, and then there's activated on full record.
Right.
So, but activated is used kind of just used, you know, like as it would be in any other sentence, and I think maybe that is leading to some confusion, like activate it, but it doesn't have to be on record, or does it have to be on record, and then it says like activated to on record. So maybe it's just a different wording for the different states that don't cross into each other's space a little bit, because I think that, to me, just reading it, it's confusing.
No, the nuance of what you said makes a lot of sense. That's why we have to look at it. When you say activated or activated with his recording, one could assume that it means the same. What is the difference? And there is a difference. And so it's wordsmith. So I think you're right. We need to take a look at how that wording is. And that's why this is really good for you to help us with the wordsmith on that.
Well, as Chair Carter said, I also just want to thank you for being willing to address it, you know, on the spot without any, you know, you didn't know I was going to mention any of this, so I appreciate, you know, your willingness to discuss these things in an open forum like this.
You know, I think Chair Carter talked about being at the Noble Conference and the things that they talked to her about reinforce the relationship that we should have. I think when you have it can't be cajole with us getting too involved in what you're doing, because it's a problem. This is why this relationship is really good, because you're going to help us get better. I look at it all the time, every day, and I cannot see things from I won't see it. It's a blind spot. So that's why I'm glad you're doing this, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Francis and Commissioner Milgram. Any other comments on this? I think it's real good, and sometimes things come up, you know, as this did. Somebody called or emailed and said, you know, what's going on? Should this have happened? And we don't know. So as I understand it, then the chief has agreed to sort of look at it and get back with us, and then we'll circulate, and if we think we need to make further comment, we can do that at that time. Good? Thank you. Okay, anything else from the Policy Committee?
I think that's enough.
That's great, thank you.
Training Committee, do we have anything? No report. We're hoping to get into some training this fall and get us, I still want to get in the things with the
Yes.
3Ds?
Yes, the 3Ds.
Okay. Outreach Committee, Commissioner Francis.
No updates so far.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
All right. And the information managers.
Yeah, as I said, we have 21 complaints, and there is a just brief conclusions to the investigation through AAPD, but we are waiting for the supportive material so we can review and all assign to the information managers to review the complaints. So we are waiting for that. The other thing we would like to get is, as I said in the past, 2020 complaints. We have about 30 or so complaints that at the time when we started reviewing them, we did not have any outline to how we really deal with the review process. And also, a few of our former colleagues just, either they resign or they ended their term. And so, as personnel information managers, we did not have their input in the complaints that they had reviewed. So we would like to go back and review those ones.
So basically, you've got to go back over all the 2020.
2020, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, thank you for that.
It's just, we want to be thorough, and we want to be also just making sure that all the complaints were reviewed by the information managers.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the City Council update, and I did speak briefly with our liaisons. We've had several questions about the status of unarmed response, and just, is there anything happening, anything else you'd like to update us on at this time?
I'm trying to press my button.
Okay.
Not much of an update. There is a resolution that Councilmember Harrison and I are working with the mayor and several other council members on looking at how we dedicate the revenue that the city receives from the county mental health millage. In the past, that was dedicated in an 40-20-20 split across affordable housing, pedestrian safety, and environmental action. But given that we have millages for all three of those efforts, we're looking at potentially using some of that revenue towards unarmed crisis response. But this is a developing conversation as we come up to Monday's meeting. Social service agencies are pushing back and really hoping that we preserve that portion for the affordable housing revenue. That money has been put towards capital projects for the 100% affordable housing on our public parcels, like the one that we just broke ground on in Carytown, and also for services. So essential services, when the county has had feelings about how they fund some services, the city has come in a pinch with budget amendments. So Councilmember Harris and I are working on this. It'll be, I think, finalized possibly for Monday's agenda. So that's the unarmed crisis response conversation right now, is how do we figure out ongoing, reoccurring funding for this? The funding that we initially had set aside was from ARPA COVID relief funding, and that's just one-time funding that had to be spent down. And I think probably before we broke for the summer, that already came up where we had 2 RFP responses. Actually, no, 1 RFP response, 2 efforts, and trying to find a partner, and that did not work out with the city. But that doesn't mean that we won't have our unarmed crisis response. It'll just come out in a way where we have to find other city revenue to fund it. And it's on us and city staff to keep investigating on how we can implement it. And one effort is that our city administrator is actually going to visit a city. And I think, Cynthia, you might have more details on this.
He's going to visit HEART, which stands for Holistic empathetic assistive response team, and that's in Durham, North Carolina. So that's a co-response program. So he's going to visit that.
Yeah.
So we're, starting really from scratch, and we need to make sure that we're very thoughtful about rolling this out. That we, make sure that we're rolling out a really meaningful program. So we are working on it. It's just that, we didn't get the seed funding from the ARPA because, like Councilmember Song said, the RFP process fell through. So we're just going back to the drawing board.
Well, with regard to that, not having the federal funds puts this in a whole nother category, obviously. So I guess I'm wondering if you can say, how much of a priority would you say this is for City Council to find the funds, get this done?
It is a priority. It really is still the same priority from the initial, wouldn't you say?
Right.
It's just that, we've got the funding is the issue, and, there's going to have to be additional funding sources, grants. We're going to have to look for other opportunities besides what, the city can provide, so.
Yeah, there are only so many sources of revenue to the city, right? There are property taxes and our millages, and that's capped too. Like our property taxes are capped because of Headley, so we don't actually receive our full potential in taxes here. So what we need to do is see what we could do with the rebate that we received from the county mental health millage, and that rebate we receive is only for municipalities within the county that already have police. So, and that's reoccurring funding, and that millage is up for renewal a year early. So the county the county commission has already put that on the ballot for this fall for renewal. And that's really essential that folks understand that not only it provides funding for essential mental health services throughout the county, like CMH, but also for Ann Arbor specifically to be able to be flexible with what that rebate can look like. So for us, we're trying to figure out how we can be creative with reoccurring tax revenue that we receive. And I think the community really thinks that since they vote for county mental health, and it's like the intent is that it goes to social service agencies, it's not that far of a stretch to think that it could possibly go to unarmed crisis response. We're just trying to figure out what portion of that rebate it could be. And then coming into the next budget cycle, where I won't be on council for this, but Councilmember Harrison will, because she has a couple more years left in her term. That's when we can revisit what that might look like for unarmed crisis response out of our general budget.
I have a question. Is there any type of federal funding that's available, like the one that we originally had?
That was COVID, federal relief. That was just one-time funding. A lot of that funding was to plug what revenue we had lost because of the pandemic. And it went towards a number of programs, including one thing that I had championed, which is a guaranteed income program. So that money has already been deployed to low-income families, and everything to the Gallup Park Bridge repair, and Barton Dam repair, it went to projects that wouldn't have, that needed funding because the federal government required, we have to repair that damn dam. There's no way around it. It would be very expensive and dangerous if we didn't. And it's so unfortunate that somehow it got tied up in this discussion on unarmed crisis response. So that money that we had originally dedicated to unarmed crisis response is now going towards the Barton Dam. It's because that money is timed out by the end of this year. And there's no city that wants to give money back to Congress. We are keeping that money and we're spending it for the better of the city. It's just, we have to re-envision what we want for unarmed crisis response that could be a program that could be stood up, and could be successful. So there are no half measures here on our part from council members and what we want to see in Ann Arbor. But it's more than just having good intentions. It's actually the operations of it is much more complicated than I think we had originally anticipated.
It is a heavy lift.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
And expensive.
Thank you very much. Is anything else we need to know from council? Thank you very much. We had questions, and you've answered them as to where we are. Thank you. We are at the end of our agenda. Is there anything else that anyone thinks we ought to talk about at this time? Commissioner Hoffman.
One thing I would like to really thank Councilmember Song for serving on our commission over here, for your thoughtful discussions and for your insights and for really the kindness that you showed. I know that you are not running, and I wish you were, but sometimes one's life sometimes dictates a different kind of path. We wish you the best in your future plans, and keep us in your thoughts, and you are welcome to be with us anytime over here and share your ideas. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Should be here.
I think I'm here for 2 more meetings, so it's not until after the general election, but thank you.
Just in case you might or might not be in here, so want to.
I don't think Cynthia would allow that to happen.
We're going to thank you at every meeting you're going to until you leave.
That's my 2 cents. Maybe next time
Good.
other commissions would say something. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, if I can say something, I've been thinking, should I say it publicly or not? But Chief, I just want to say, I want to applaud some of your officers for a great job of some work that I've seen that they do. I happened to be leaving my office on Friday late, and an ambulance pulled into a neighborhood that we serve pretty heavily, and it was a very tough situation for a family where there was a loss of life, and your officers, I'm going to complain when I'm going to tell you when they're doing something bad, and so I want to tell you when they're doing something good too, right? Your officers treated everybody in that situation with a tremendous amount of compassion, caring, just really looked out for what was a tough situation of emotions and people coming in and out. I mean, it lasted for 3.5 hours before the deceased was removed. And throughout that, the officers were just exceptional in giving us space to work with the family and being compassionate with all the emotional things that were happening. And so everybody who was on that call was exceptional, and I just want to say thank you. Okay. And if you could thank them. I would mention names, but we won't. All right.
And thank you, Commissioner Billups. We certainly want to hear about the compliments. We hear complaints every now and then. We certainly want to hear about the compliments.
Right.
Very good. Thank you so much. Anything else before we adjourn?
Can I add something really quickly?
Yes.
Sorry, I've been talking so much. So we've had an incident in the community of ethnic bias. And the chief has put out a statement about this, and I love it, and it also has announced a way for reporting any information. So I think you've posted on social media a QR code, what is it, Silent Witness, is that right? Is the program. So I encourage folks to participate in that. And I spoke to the chief about this before yesterday in our ward meeting. Given that, tensions are really high, the election is coming, and we anticipate more protests. I'm always looking for ways for the community to come together peacefully and just celebrate the love and care that we practice here every day in Ann Arbor. And there's an event, and in full disclosure, I'm on the board of this group, and it is a fundraiser, but you don't have to give to participate. It's Walk a Mile in My Shoes. It's a refugee supportive walk in the Burns Park area this Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell will be there to speak. And it's in support of all the refugees we resettle here. So it's a Jewish organization that serves everyone in the community, from senior services to refugee resettlement, trauma therapy for folks coming from war zones, and they're mostly Muslim. So I think it's a good example of what we can do here, and despite the strife we're feeling and then the concerns that we're feeling around the election, it's good to see people come together. I don't want us to become a Springfield. You know what I mean? We welcome folks every single day in our communities, in our schools, in our workplace. And it's a nice way to demonstrate to other elected leaders that this is a priority for Ann Arbor when we talk about public safety, housing, and all the social services that we try to support. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But it's 10 to noon in the Burns Park neighborhood. Walk a mile in my shoes.
This is Jewish Family Services you're referring to?
Jewish Family Services. I am not Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish. It's not a religious affiliated in any way. It's but they do really good work, and I think it helps eases like some misconceptions about who's in our community. And you know, as some of these incidences come up, some of the worries that, you know, who's being harmed and who's harming whom, it doesn't come out when you're walking side by side and having bagels with each other, you know. So yeah, I'll be there.
Everybody likes bagels.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to back up for a minute. You know, we had talked about making note of complaints as well as compliments. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Billups to do a write-up and name those officers and send it to Ms. Cummings.
Sure.
Okay, so we have that as well. Anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.